an airline as well operating into Africa, have some challenges specifically with, we might sometimes have the local infrastructure, but the international cable has been cut or whatever. And those kind of environments, which gives it difficulty to get consistency. Is there any questions from the audience? Of course, Olivier will be a part of the panel at the end as well, so we have more time for questions, but any specific questions? No, absolutely nobody. No, thanks, Olivier, for everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the next speaker is different. He doesn't work for an airline, but he is actually a very knowledgeable person. And Dave is actually speaking down there. When I approached the speakers last week, just saying, can we speak? And he replied back and says, I'm actually doing some work in Dubai. Like, where are you? And I realized he was about 40 meters away from me in my office. And I wasn't even aware he was in the building. So he's quite internationally well-traveled. He's been working for Airwatch, which I thought originally must be watches made from air or something like that. But he will probably explain what it is for the last 2.5 years. And is going to explain us some very exciting stuff. I'll leave the floor to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for sticking around. I know it's late, and we've had all the other interesting meetings so far, but it's good to come and speak to you about mobility and what Airwatch is doing in this space for airlines looking to implement a mobile solution. So my first, just as an introduction as to what Airwatch is doing in this space currently. So we're a mobile device management software platform. So in an industry where you have multiple platforms, you have multiple use cases, and you've got multiple people that are actually using these devices in different scenarios, we've got a unified solution to tie together all of these different mobile devices, so be them phones, tablets, laptops, even peripherals and ruggedized devices, and also across all the different mobile operating systems. Now this is quite important when we're looking at a mobile strategy within a single solution. It means that I don't need to purchase a single system to manage my one particular use case of my mobility and another one for a separate use case. I can have all of these use cases tied into one system within the Airwatch product. We've got some strategies around having corporate devices. Bring your own device is a good way to save costs. I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail. But there's an awful lot of use cases that you might not think of when we're talking about an airline, be that your corporate devices, your ground crew staff, your pilots. They all have a mobile use case, and what we're doing here is to try and integrate that into a single solution. So when we're talking about what we want to enable on a mobile device, we might want to look at pushing down some applications, for example. So if we're looking at a device to give to our pilots, they're going to want to have some form of EFB, perhaps, if they're using mapping technology such as Jefferson, Lufthansa, you might want to have mapping software, weights and balances. There's an awful lot of applications out there that can help a pilot be very efficient at their job in the cockpit. And this is really an area where apps have kind of led the mobility strategy for airlines. If we can get everything that we need into a single platform in front of the pilot, they can look at this one device for everything that they need to calculate in the cockpit. So in terms of the challenges that we have with airlines, it's all around regulation. It's a highly regulated industry to be in. There are some similarities when we're talking about payments, for example, if we're looking at cabin staff, how they accept payments on mobile devices. If we have got devices in the cockpit, are they Class 1, Class 2 approved, for example? There's an awful lot of red tape that you have to go through to manage a mobile device within certain industries, and transportation is exactly the same with the aviation industry. In terms of the device support as well, we talked a second ago about all the different platforms, and that in itself is a challenge. So being able to support your Windows devices alongside your Android devices, if you're using iOS, it could be laptops as well, peripherals that maybe have their own bespoke operating systems. Being able to manage these sorts of devices is a challenge. When we're talking about integration as well, we want to be able to have not just another system that stands alone, but we want to have it integrated with an existing asset that we already have. So if we are using directory services, if we've got Wi-Fi infrastructure, if we're using certificate-based authentication, we want to be able to integrate a new solution into existing areas of investment that we've already spent money in. So in terms of some of the use cases for saving money and for giving some benefit back to the business with mobility. So when we're talking about EFB, the primary use case is to reduce the amount of paper within the cockpit. That in itself, weight saving alone is a primary benefit. I mean, there's a few quotes here about how much fuel can be saved, how much paper can be saved by using an EFB solution in the cockpit. And this is where Airwatch and a lot of the aviation use cases, this is one of the primary reasons that people come to us with a business case. They want to be able to have a paperless cockpit. The administration alone in the cockpit is much less if we've got a centralized way to distribute this content out. The days of old where it was all printed paper, there was a lot of admin behind getting that piece of content to the correct stakeholder. But now we can do this all from a centralized location with the Airwatch product and with the secure content locker in the cockpit. So in terms of another use case with our EFBs, as well as having document management, we've got mapping in the cockpit as well. So having assets that we've already got with Jefferson, with Lufthansa, being able to have that on the device. One of the items that might not be so apparent when we're looking at EFB in the cockpit is things like training, for example. So training material, for example, can be sent down to the device. It could be videos, it could be audio files, PDFs, etc. And essentially, we could have the pilots, instead of dragging them out of the cockpit, we could actually have a classroom on their device. So when they are doing downtime, when they're in the air, we can reduce costs by taking them out of the cockpit and into a classroom. So there are hidden benefits to having an electronic system to deliver your EFB content in training as well. So in terms of some of the other applications for navigation, I briefly mentioned it earlier, but we can have any number of applications from the vendor of your choice, and that can be pushed down on an enrollment process with Airwatch. So if I am using a particular vendor for my weights and balances, if I'm using certain tools for my mapping, if I'm using certain tools for my content, we can actually customize exactly who should get those applications pushed down. And again, this is utilizing some investments that you've already got with your existing applications. So out of the cockpit and into for cabin staff, payments, cashless cabins, they've been around for some time, and Rob, you'll agree, the innovation hasn't always come from the retail side of things. It was actually born from the aviation side. So being able to be cashless and pay for items on board an aircraft, it's been around for a long time. But what we can do with the mobile device strategy is actually to support the point-of-sale applications. So not only can you be safe in the mind that it's a PCI-compliant device, software, and management solution, it gives your customers some reassurance as well, so that you can streamline that process for purchasing on board an aircraft. So in terms of the passenger experience, this is somewhere where I think is a real strong area to put investment into. So like the talk a second ago, there was a lot of investment into making a system that would work nicely with your customers so that they knew exactly where they were going, exactly what they're doing. There's still a lot of innovation to come from the mobile operating system vendors. So if I'm talking about Apple, Android, and Microsoft devices, there's a kind of a hidden Cold War going on where they're all trying to improve their API set, improve their devices for end users. Today, iOS 8 is being released, and that's going to add another few APIs over Samsung devices, for example. So there's a race going on to become the most integrated, the most user-friendly, and this is where we're trying to adapt to this space as well. So there's still some innovation to come, but being able to give your end users or your customers the experience of having their own native feel on their device, either through an application or even your end users in the business, if they've got an application on their device that they're used to, they're going to be more accustomed to it, more transparent to using that device for work purposes. One of the areas for wanting to improve the passenger experience is the profit margin for a passenger on a flight is very minimal, and especially in LCC, you're wanting to capture. You're trying to compete on price, but there's a very small margin in which to do so. So one area that you can really invest in is the passenger experience. So rather than trying to compete on price, you can compete on experience. And this is really where we can use mobile devices again. So let's say I'm stepping off a flight and I've got a connecting flight. There was some issue in the air that meant that I was a bit late for my landing. An operator on the ground could have an application to tell them exactly who those people are that need to get to the connecting flight as quick as possible. So being able to give that personal experience back to your employees on the ground, that could be really valuable. And again, there are still some innovations to come in this area, but the possibilities are endless. You could really give a very good user experience by giving information from the air to the ground and essentially just carrying your passengers in a way that makes them think you're exceptional in this area. So e-boarding passes, this is obviously an area where we're looking to innovate, and it's going to be quite a hard task to change the way things have been done for 40 years. But again, mobile is stepping that direction. You can get applications now to print your boarding passes. Integration is some area where we can really see some strides forwards. Again, there's still some innovation to come. But as a passenger, it would be great to be able to plan my journey straight from my house to my destination in my other country. If I've got a mapping solution on my device already, that could plan exactly where I need to go in the airport. From there, I'm using an application that will give me my tickets, get me through passport control, tell me exactly where I need to go within the airport, and essentially get on the plane. And then the other end, I can plan my travels after I've stepped off the plane in the other country. So all of these systems, they all exist today, but the integration between them is somewhere where we need a bit more maturity to give that excellent passenger experience. But it's certainly somewhere where it's being heavily invested by some of the airlines in the world. So in terms of, we've talked about how we can improve things for our customers, but also if we're IT people, we can also see our end users, the people that are actually working for our company, as end users as well. So how can we improve their experience as well? So by giving them applications on a device that they could do bidding, for example, shift rotors. They could know exactly where they need to be and what's meant for them, where they're going, for example. And it doesn't have to be on a corporate device that we have to issue them. So one of the aspects is bring your own device. So if we're making an application, we can make that available as a BYOD. So again, we're reducing the cost of providing them a device, but equally beneficial for the information that we're giving them. So just to step on to some other use cases that we're working with some other airlines. Excuse me. So BYOD, with TAG Aviation, very big BYOD strategy they had going. They can see the benefits and cost savings. Essentially, by having a BYOD program, not only are you encouraging your users to use their own device for work, so you're not having to provide them with a device, it gives them that native feel. So if I'm a user and I've got my preference as an iOS or an Android device, I don't have to extract them from the platform of their preference. Ultimately, the mobile-enabled generation wants to be able to choose the platform that they want to integrate with. By using devices, as we talked about, reducing fuel costs. This is big with EFB, being able to reduce the amount of paper involved, and having a mobile device. Also corporate devices, so being able to manage the security on the device. So when we issue a device to our end users, having an enrollment process that will set up their email, give them their content, their applications, as well as security and restrictions on the device. And ultimately, if the device was ever lost or stolen, we can extract all of that information. So we're not safeguarding the device necessarily, but definitely the data that's on that device that could be sensitive. So another use case from FlightWorks, having the secure content locker available, again, for the training benefits that such a solution can bring. Integration with your existing infrastructure in terms of content. So if you are using SharePoint, file servers, if you're using cloud variants like Office 365, Google Drive, you can actually tie this into the Airwatch Secure Content Locker and define the security that you have on those pieces of content and how it should be accessed on the device. And again, ultimately, if it's downloaded onto the device, we're fully FIPS 140 compliant, so that if that data is on the device, it's encrypted and it's not easily extracted from that device. Being able to use compliance as well, so it's all well and good sending all of this information down to the device. We want to have some real-time interaction with that device to know that it's still compliant with our company policies. If we're mandating a white and black list of applications on our corporate devices, is that still the case? Has it been jailbroken or rooted or compromised in some way? So having this real-time information fed back to our console and action taken appropriately. So if there is an issue on a security issue on the device, we can initiate an enterprise wipe to extract all of that corporate information from the device. So some of these challenges are being answered with the solution that we're providing. In terms of this last case study, application distribution. So we talked about the benefits of application, but some of the aspects that you might want to enable is your own company app store. So if we're talking about providing a load of applications to our end users, it might be that we want to recommend 100 applications, but we don't necessarily want to push 100 applications down to the device on an enrollment. So what we can do is have your own company app store where the user can go and pick and choose, again, the application of their choice. So if our pilots, for example, they've got various different applications, they have a preference for TechLog, or they have a preference for weights and balance, then they can actually pick and choose the one that they want to use. So giving your users that choice ultimately. Being able to track the devices as well, so if we do lose a device, they are reporting back to Airwatch on a regular basis. You could actually track that device, know exactly what was on the device when it was lost or stolen. We can see exactly what content that the user's has downloaded and how often they've been viewing it. You can get some really good analytics, and again, this ties into privacy. You don't have to collect this information, but we've got capability to. And just on the last one, the EFB management. So again, having that centralized management of the content down to the devices. This is an area where it gives you a lot more control. So if there is a change, no longer do you have to ship out a whole change in paper form. You can just update, do full version control within the Airwatch console, push out that new piece of content. So there's a few good use cases here where we've got challenges and we can answer them with this product. So like any business, utilizing multiple device use cases means that multi-tenancy is quite key. So being able to have these defined use cases and being able to adapt to the future use cases as well. Often when we work with airlines and they haven't used any kind of mobile device management platform before, they come to us with maybe 1 to 5 use cases that they can think of, and then by the time they've implemented, they've thought of another 20 that are very useful as well. So being able to be future-proof and multi-tenant this, and also tie this into existing integration. Being able to do rapid deployment. So if we need a solution in a week's time, we've got capability to do rapid deployments using the Airwatch product to get devices from the box and into the hands of the end users as quick as possible. But all the time we're mindful of the compliance that's in place. So by using hardware, by using software that's compliant with the various aviation regulations, we can actually tie that into our strategy. So in terms of the getting device into the hands of the end user, this is quite an expensive task if we're talking about a device one-to-one. So if we're giving 500 devices to 500 users, this can be quite expensive. So what we've got options to do is shared device mode as well. So instead of buying 500 devices, you could buy 100 devices and have a shared device mode. So essentially a check-in and check-out model. So when I check it out, it can be assigned to me. I can get my emails, my application, my content assigned to me. When I'm done with the device, I can check it back in, and then it's ready for the next user to come in and authenticate and get their information come down to the device. So this is probably led from the healthcare environment, where devices are more scarce to procure. There's more issues around procuring them and the financing behind that. So we can use a shared device mode as a way to reduce the cost of a mobile deployment. So at this time, I'd be quite happy to take any questions. Obviously, I went through that very quickly. I'm very mindful that we're close to the end, and probably if you go to visit stand 17, we might be packing up in about 20 minutes' time. But any questions at this time?
I might actually have one question. If it were like a project on BYOD, I think it's getting more and more important for airlines to do with the customer. What kind of time frame do you talk about for implementing something like this?
So the time frame is completely variable to the capability that you want to have. So for example, if I just want to set up my email on my devices and have a security policy, it's very quick. We can do a shared SaaS model where ultimately we just set it up and you're a tenant within a shared SaaS, and you can push down policy to just your device. That's very quick to implement. We can also do an on-premise model and a dedicated SaaS model. But if we're tying into existing assets, it might be that you want to tie into your ActiveSync infrastructure, and that might be certificate-based, so there's extra complexity, but we can actually integrate to certificate authorities, EAS, Active Directory, so that we can get the same kind of security that you have on your laptop community onto your mobile devices.
Okay. Just maybe that's more a serious question for pilots. I think these days there's more and more devices in the cockpit. There have also been pilots who have been completely forgotten they're flying airplanes because they're watching movies on their tablets and other things. But do you have any way to turn the thing automatically off for non-essential business below 20,000 feet, or to control them reading their emails of their wives or whatever it is on the last moment when they're on final?
Yeah, so we've got certain ways that we can dictate policy. So when I'm in a kind of work mode on my device, I could actually lock it down to any work applications, for example, and then I can use my own kind of check-in, check-out. So when I'm checking the device back in, it's now my personal device. So we do have concepts around managing a workspace as well. So I can flick from my personal mode, where I can hand my tablet to my children and they can play games on it, and then have a process where I sign into my work mode, and now I'm getting my work email, my work applications completely separated. So there's platforms such as Samsung Knox. Airwatch has its own product as well, which can do this dual persona of a device. But this is one of the ways that we can separate what is personal on a device and what is work on the device.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? And otherwise grab them straight after this. As I say, going to stand 17 is probably not going to work anymore, but yep. Any questions from the audience? No? Okay, then I would like to go to the last session. And if the three panelists which are sitting around can actually take a seat on here.
Thank you very much.
It's effectively us talking to us three